Good evening, parents. Time check Singapore. 2345 is coming to 12 midnight. And I'm still doing this analysis to help students to improve in their coming examinations, to learn from their mistakes of their prelim examinations. So this is question 36 as I continue to explain. Okay, here you can screenshot the questions to minimize the time I use to explain it. I just want to highlight to the student why the Callan mistake was being made, because this is a wrong concept. Because they say state another property. So can you see this material can be bent at corners? So this will indicate that the material is flexible. Okay, and finally here, I would stand on the side of the student that he should get 0.5 marks more for this question in part B. Because he forgot to mention about this phrase gain heat. As you can see, the water on the wet material R will evaporate into cool water vapor, so on and so forth. It's quite similar to the answers provided, just that the student forgot to mention gain heat. So instead of 0 mark, I would have given the student half mark. Okay, if the marking protocol can be divided into half mark and 1 mark, then the student should get the half mark. If the marking protocol is only 1 mark, then the student will not be awarded any mark. Okay, part C, the student actually answered very well, because without changing the speed suggests how the cooling system can lower the outdoor temperature. So the answer is decrease the temperature of the water in the water tank. Well done. Okay, this is a very interesting question on electrical circuits, and I made a personal comment over here. I assume that less than 15% of the students in this cohort will get this wrong. So in other words, this student was very careless, because if you see that if you get B correct, it proves that the student was careless in answering part A. So this is evidence that the student was careless in part A. Because if you see, actually it's quite easy. They say which of the switches must be closed for only the bell to ring. So where's the bell? The bell is here, right? And this is the power source. So this is the positive end. This is the negative end on top. So can you see the electricity will flow this way? I use another color to indicate. So of course, this switch must be closed, because this is the master switch, is nearest to the power source. Okay, I do not want the light bulb to light up, so I must divert over here. Can you see? And I must close this switch R. Can you see? And then continue the way down, close switch S, X, and then bypass the bell, and then we can come back here. This will form a closed circuit. So the answer is S, R, and X. S, R, X, careless. Because he got part B correct. So this is a good indication to see, or for parents to assess whether your child doesn't know the concept or whether your child was really careless in the examination. So this is a very clear evidence that the child was very careless in answering part A, because he get part B perfectly correct. Next. Okay, this question I like to praise the student, because if you examine carefully, the student answer is also correct. In fact, it is better. Why? Because if you see in this arrangement, if I remove the annotation by the school's marker, this part, okay, because the green color is the part that the schools have annotated after the script is being sent for marking. Okay, so this is what happened. Look at this condition over there. Okay, this is the condition that must be satisfied. Okay, so you can see the student, I believe that the student has annotated, because I use my eraser here, it doesn't rub off. So it shows that the students have annotated this question. And in fact, I taught this question just before the students took their prelim examinations. So I like to praise the student for so-called retaining the information well. Okay, let's examine why this worked. Can you see he connected the positive ends of the two batteries together? And this is what happened. So if you close switch X, can you see? Switch X is on and the other off. So only this part will cause the bulb to light up, which is satisfy the condition, correct? Okay, let's say you on both, 1 and 2. So similarly, you close this. So again, this part will form a closed circuit with this independently. Next, if I remove the annotation, let's try the other conditions. So it's very easy to see. When both are off, so none will light up. So we have tried one on. Okay, let's try one more, which is this. Switch Y is on, since this is closed, and the other. So you can see this forms a closed circuit as well. Okay, the given answer by the school is this. Okay, what's the difference between the student answer and the model answer? Okay, in simple terms, you can see these two batteries are connected in series. Okay, so if you close this switch, right, this bulb is being powered by two batteries. So it will be brighter. Clear? That's why if you close one, it's only powered by one because there's an open circuit on the other side. Actually, would this battery work? It may work as well because if you see here, these two are connected in parallel. So there's also, as I say, this is a superior connection because if one battery fails, the other battery can back up. So for example, if you close Y, right, supposedly this battery run out of power. Can you see that the other battery can actually supplies the power to light up this bulb? Let me indicate with annotation here. So if this is closed, right, because this wire is an electrical conductor, it can supply the electrical energy via this circuit. So this is indeed a superior answer than the school answer. So I would have awarded the student 2 marks. So that's why I advise the student to seek or appeal to the HOD to clarify on this question. Next is a physical science question. And I think it's careless because I reminded students many times to put in the word lose heat or heat lost. So this was being neglected, so half mark deducted. And also, let's move on. Part B, very careless. More than 60% of students should get this correct because it's very simple. The purpose of the measuring cylinder is to be able to measure the liquid more accurately. So this is the answer. So I can classify this as a very careless question. Lost 1 mark. Next. Okay. Okay, this is my comment. Minus his omission of temperature, student is factually correct. Okay, what I mean, because the student mentioned here 30 degrees, this will decrease the difference. He forgotten to mention what difference, the temperature difference. Because you see in this question, this is the water being heated up, so the warmer water vapor will come into contact with the metal sheet. So the metal sheet actually at 10 degrees Celsius. Okay, because of the greater temperature difference, there's more condensation happen. Okay, so if you use a metal sheet at 30 degrees Celsius, there will be lesser condensation. So that's why I say minus the omission of temperature, the student is actually factually correct. Okay, one important things parents need to know and students need to be aware and teachers also need to be careful. However, his answer was not based on the experiment. Okay, what I mean is actually factually he's correct, but because of this phrase over here, based on the experiment. not based on scientific fact, not based on what you know. It's based on the experiment. So here, therefore, in PSLE P5 or P4, must answer contextually. Factually correct is not enough. Facts and context must be aligned. Facts and context must be aligned. So for this question in specific, so he must or she must answer according to the table over here. Okay. So if you see the model answer is very straightforward. 30 degrees, there was a smaller volume of water collected in the beaker after 5 minutes when the metal sheet was at 30 degrees. This indicates that there was lower rate of condensation, reducing the amount of water collected. Because if you see here, the student is supposed to explain, reduce the amount of mist form on the windscreen. You need to explain. So this is answered factually and contextually. So these are the important facts that students and parents need to take note that all the answers in the open-ended must be answered contextually and be also factually correct. Okay, this is another P6 physical science question about forces in action. You notice there is a spelling error, but he was awarded full marks. Okay, this is what PSLE marking do. If the word that was spelled wrongly is not another word, does not have a contradiction meaning or opposite meaning, the student will be awarded the full marks. That means no spelling will be penalized. So even if the student, let's say gravitational spell wrongly, instead of VI, right, they put VLT, spell wrongly, both words spell wrongly, you will still get a 1 mark. Because the idea is there, gravitational force and frictional force. Clear? Okay, next one is very important, following instruction. So without following instruction, although factually is correct, okay, because you see this part is factually correct. If you put oil on the ground, this will reduce the amount of frictional force between the car and the floor, and that is factually correct. But the student did not follow instruction. Why? Because they say using the same material. You cannot add new material, okay? You must use the same material. Follow instructions. Next, P6 physical science question. Okay, here I made also another comment that scientific answering is required. So this is a scientific answering. Initially, if you see the student answer, is non-scientific answering. Why? Let me explain. What do you mean by not stable? Okay, he said that the opening of the balloon is not stable. And also mentioned about the opening will be blown around. Opening will be blown around, but opening is fixed, is fixed at the balloon's mouth. So this part, opening will be blown around, it seems vague. Because I mentioned how can it be blown around? Because it seems vague. So when answering questions, the students must provide very clear answers. So this is a model answer. The balloon does not move in a straight line. Why? Because there's a pushing force. Okay, the pushing force is in this direction. Okay, there's a pushing force and it changes its direction when the air escapes from the balloon. So when the force changes direction will cause the movement to change as well. So we're coming back to the almost the last question. This is also a P6 physical science question. And in fact, this type of question is quite typical in PSLE. Okay, I want to comment on this because I think the teachers is finishing to mark this script quite urgently. The marker failed to detect this part. Okay, just to take note, if this answer is presented during PSLE, marks will be penalized. Why? Because the drawing has exceeded the boundary of the graph. This is the boundary. So no line should be exceeding this boundary. So if you see here, the student actually was awarded full marks. And also there's a scientific skill being involved. Can you see the lines are very straight? So the use of ruler is evident. It's a very scientific skill demonstrated. So please use ruler, do not use freehand. And this answer he answered Very well done. Next, stiffer spring. Okay, this part, the relationship must be clear. Okay, so you can see here, spring G, right, is actually the stiffer spring, even indicated here. Okay, spring G is a stiffer spring, so you must use a superlative. When comparing experiment, if they are the most, you must use the superlative, stiffest. So you can see here the student actually lost 1 mark because the student, I believe that actually the student should be awarded another 0.5 mark. So supposedly this question, they award 0.5, 1, 1.5, and 2. So in my analysis, if there's such a marking protocol, the student should be awarded another 5 marks. Why? 0.5 marks. Why? Okay, firstly, the idea of stiffer spring provides most suitable spring to make a mattress is evident in the answer above. Okay, if you read the student answer, is evident because the student mentioned it is a stiffer spring among the 3 spring, so it will have the most elastic potential energy when all the 3 springs are compressed or put to a same length. Hence, it will be the most suitable spring to make a mattress. Okay, why he lost a half mark? Because this part, they say most suitable. Okay, stiffer spring provide more support. So this relationship was not stated clearly in his answer. If you look at the model answer, it say that spring G is the stiffest and will provide the most support because this is the relationship stated in the question. Mattresses with stiffer spring provide more support. So more, more stiff, right? More stiff. So most stiff or stiffest will provide more support. So this part, he lost a half mark. But technically, I believe instead of getting 1, the student should be awarded 1.5. If the marking protocol has a 1.5 marks for awarding. So my advice is please appeal to the school science HOD to check on this to award another 0.5 marks. Because earlier there was also another 0.5 mark issue or even a 1 mark issue in his circuit diagram. And I believe this is the last question. Okay, I want to explain this slightly slowly because this is the P4 science content question on light. If you remember in P4, they learn about light. So you can see here, in fact, the student was careless. I believe maybe lack of time due to panic. Because I believe very easily more than 70% of students should get this correct. Because he cannot change the paper. But we know that in P4, right, we can shift the light closer to the position X so that the light sensor will detect more light or greater light intensity. So that's why I make this remark here. He broke the rule because cannot change paper. He said use thinner paper. Instead, you use a brighter torch, or you can move the torch closer to position X. Okay, closer to position X, so that they can count up to 8 sheets of paper, or you can shift the light sensor closer to position X. So once again, this is the review of this school's paper, and I wish that all students and parents to turn crisis into opportunities, learn from mistake, and continue to pursue to greater heights in the coming PSLE science examination. And this is Mr. Howard Yu, sending my greetings to every one of you. And now just do another time check. It's past midnight. So I'm doing my best to help students and parents not to give up hope, continue to encourage the child to learn from mistake. So I will send you my greetings, wishing you doing the best in the coming examinations. Bye.